In 1948, the average rural American family grew a significant portion of their own food. Not because they were homesteaders or survivalists, because that's just what people did. And one of the most common plants in those kitchen gardens wasn't tomatoes, and it wasn't beans. It was a green that most Americans today have never heard of eating. It's called Lambsquarters. And according to the USDA nutrition database, 100 grams of raw Lambsquarters contains more calcium than a glass of milk, more vitamin A than a cup of cooked carrots, and 4.2 grams of protein, more than twice the protein of the same amount of spinach. Your grandfather probably pulled it out of the garden because he didn't know what it was. His grandfather would have cooked it for dinner. That's how fast this knowledge disappeared. Lambsquarters, its scientific name is Chenopodium album, has been eaten by humans for at least 8,000 years. Archaeologists have found Lambsquarters seeds at prehistoric sites across Europe and North America. Native American tribes, including the Navajo, the Zuni, and numerous Plains tribes, ate the leaves as a cooked green and ground the seeds in a flour for bread. Records from the 1800s show it was consumed across Appalachia, the Midwest, and the rural South, wherever families were growing their own food. It's a close relative of spinach, quinoa, and beets. All the same plant family, Chenopodiaceae. The difference is that spinach and quinoa were domesticated and commercialized. Lambsquarters wasn't. It just kept growing wild everywhere for free. By the middle of the 20th century, as supermarkets replaced kitchen gardens and commercial agriculture replaced family farms, the knowledge of how to use Lambsquarters started to disappear. Not because of a law or a deliberate campaign. It just got crowded out. People stopped teaching it to their kids because they were buying greens at the store. And within 2 generations, a plant that had been food for thousands of years became a weed that people mowed down without a second thought. The nutritional data we have on Lambsquarters today makes that loss look a lot more significant than it might seem. Here are the numbers straight from the USDA Food Data Central database for 100 grams of raw Lambsquarters. Protein, 4.2 grams. Calcium, 309 milligrams. That's 31% of your daily recommended intake. For comparison, a full cup of whole milk gives you about 276 milligrams of calcium. Lambsquarters beats it. Iron, 1.2 milligrams. Potassium, 452 milligrams. Magnesium, 34 milligrams. Vitamin A, 11,600 IU. That's over twice the daily recommended intake in a single 100-gram serving. Vitamin C, 80 milligrams, which is close to the full daily recommended amount. Folate, 30 micrograms. Now here's what makes Lambsquarters particularly remarkable compared to store-bought greens. Spinach, which is the plant Lambsquarters most resembles in cooking, contains about 2.9 grams of protein per 100 grams. Lambsquarters has 4.2 grams. Kale has about 4.3 grams. Lambsquarters is right there with kale, except kale costs $3 a bunch. Lambsquarters grows wild in your yard. The calcium number is the one that really gets me. We have an entire dairy industry built on the promise of delivering calcium. And this plant, which grows as a weed in every state in the country, outperforms milk on calcium content per gram. That's not an opinion. That's the USDA's own data. Lambsquarters is one of the easiest wild plants to identify. Once you know what you're looking for, you will start seeing it everywhere. The plant grows upright, anywhere from 1 foot to 6 feet tall, depending on the conditions. The leaves are the key identifier. They're shaped like a goose's foot, which is actually where one of its old folk names, goosefoot, comes from. The edges of the leaves are slightly toothed or scalloped. The color is a muted, dusty green on top, but here's the distinctive feature. The underside of young leaves and the growing tips are covered in a white or silvery powder. It almost looks like the plant was dusted with flour. That coating is actually a natural waxy bloom that the plant produces. No other common weed looks quite like that. Lambsquarters loves disturbed soil, the same kind of soil purslane loves. You'll find it at the edges of gardens, in compost piles, along fence lines, in vacant lots, and growing up between rows in untreated fields. It emerges in spring and keeps growing through summer into early fall. The seeds are tiny, black, and round, and they appear in dense clusters along the stems in late summer. Those seeds are edible and were historically ground into flour. For identification, look for the upright growth, the goosefoot-shaped leaf, and that powdery, white coating on the young leaves. Those three features together make it unmistakable. The flavor of Lambsquarters is mild, earthy, and very similar to spinach. Actually, most people say it tastes better than spinach. The texture when cooked is slightly heartier because the leaves are a bit thicker. It's genuinely a pleasant green to eat, which makes it even more baffling that it fell out of use. The simplest preparation is just to treat it exactly like spinach. Sauté it in a pan with a little olive oil or butter and garlic. It will down the same way spinach does. Season with salt and a squeeze of lemon. Done. It takes 3 minutes and it goes with anything. It works great in soups. In traditional Appalachian cooking, Lambsquarters was added to bean and pork soups in the same way modern cooks use kale. Just add a few handfuls to any soup in the last 5 minutes of cooking. You can also eat it raw in salads when the leaves are young and tender, before the plant gets too tall and the leaves get tougher. Young Lambsquarters leaves have a flavor that's almost sweet. The seeds, which ripen in late summer, can be collected and used as a grain. They're related to quinoa. Same family, same basic nutritional profile. You can cook them like you cook quinoa, or grind them into a flour and use them in pancakes or bread. Indigenous families across the American West did exactly that for centuries. One note, Lambsquarters does contain oxalates, the same compound found in spinach. For most people, this is completely fine, but if you have a history of kidney stones, you should eat it in moderate amounts. Same advice applies to spinach. Here's the simplest growing advice I can give you for Lambsquarters. Stop pulling it out. If you have Lambsquarters growing in your garden or yard right now, and most of you probably do without knowing it, just leave a few plants alone and let them grow. Harvest the leaves for your table throughout the summer. At the end of the season, let those plants go to seed. Each plant produces hundreds of thousands of seeds. Those seeds will stay viable in your soil for years and sprout on their own every spring. If you don't have it yet and want to establish it, collect seeds from a wild plant in late summer. Scatter them in a garden bed or a dedicated patch of ground. Press them lightly into the surface and water once. Lambsquarters germinates quickly and easily. You'll likely see sprouts within a week or two. It grows best in full sun, but tolerates partial shade. It genuinely does not care about soil quality. In fact, it often grows better in poor soil than in rich, fertilized garden beds. And it requires essentially no maintenance once established. The old farmers had a saying, the best weeds are the ones you can eat. Lambsquarters was what they were talking about. Your great-grandmother knew this plant. Her mother knew it. The families who built this country ate it through hard winters and lean years and droughts. And somewhere between their generation and ours, the knowledge of how to use it just stopped being passed down. That's a loss, but it's not a permanent one. Every plant I cover on this channel is a plant you can start using this week for free. No specialty equipment, no permits, no experience required. Just the information that used to be common knowledge and somehow isn't anymore. Subscribe if you want more of that. Next video is about a plant that survived the Dust Bowl. Literally, while everything else in the American Midwest was dying, this plant kept growing, producing food, and it has a nutritional profile that puts commercial crops to shame.